All right, back to the basics. Corporate Compliance 101. MidSouth has had a corporate compliance program since 2003. Not much changes in terms of the law. Corporate compliance is here to stay. You guys have been through training year after year after year because that's required of a corporate compliance program. I want you all to shut your notebooks. Y'all just had a preview this morning. You had a wonderful session. Bullet point some of your compliance elements, compliance issues. Again, not much changes, and we do this every year. So this year, I thought, I'm gonna test you. All right. What is a corporate compliance program? All right. You get a prize. Anybody else? What's a corporate compliance program? Who's MidSouth's corporate compliance officer? Who said that? Who else said that? All right, you get another prize. You might have to take your whole bowl and walk around. What is fraud? Raise your hand. What's fraud? It's got a particular element to it. You are correct. What? Intentional. Okay, these two ladies, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. She's going to get to you with your prize. Who's for the Denver Broncos?
Nobody.
Panthers. All right, everybody's got a mint in front of them. There's your prize. What is abuse? Abuse. Do what? Intentional harm. Abuse is not necessarily intentional. It's unprofessional conduct that results in harm. All right, but you're close. Hold your hand up. You get a prize. How do you correct a medical record? Hold your hand. Anybody? Put your hand up. You got an answer? Anybody? Woo, you guys got a lot to learn. One line through and you put your initial. It is a very transparent act. All right, put your hand up. What do you do if approached by a government official in an audit investigation? Run. They will have guns though, so be careful. Send them to Mark. Correct. Correct. You get a prize. Anybody else got suggestion for what you do when the government shows up? Yes, get their name badge too. Always ask for the government credentials. If they show up, do not talk to them until they give you the credentials. Okay? And then you take them to Mark. But if they ask you a question, you answer them honestly and truthfully. Okay? I'll eventually stand still. Who is looking at you? Fraud and abuse. I heard it this morning. Y'all got suggestions? Anybody know who's auditing you? Who's looking at you? Hold up your hand. I heard it. Brad. Who else? You had your hand up. Yes, Z-Pick. Keep your hand up. Z-Pick, RAC. OIG. Who'd you got? There you go. You sitting by the compliance officer. He ought to be feeding you some answers. Anybody know the elements of a corporate compliance program? Anyone? All right. Corporate compliance is here to stay, guys. It's not going anywhere. It should be like a fire drill that you understand it. You know what it is and you know what it's all about. Y'all got the general gist. Pat yourself on the back. It is about detecting and deterring fraud and abuse. And I want you, since we're talking about game day and sports, think of MidSouth as the quarterback. The company's the quarterback, and you guys are to protect the quarterback. Identify fraud and abuse, report fraud and abuse, address it. It's not going away, and the government is not going to let up on it. The government's kind of running out of money, and they're determined to go back and make sure that they're paying for a good, valuable service. It doesn't make sense that in the healthcare industry we pay for whatever, versus when you have a plumber come out and fix your toilet. If they don't fix it, do you pay for it? If they don't fix it, do you pay for it? You make them come back out and do it again. That's what the government's theory is now. If it's not fixed, if it's not a good service, we're not going to pay for it. If you didn't do it, the government's not going to pay for it. And so, you know, we talk about this in terms of Medicare and Medicaid. There are states that are now adopting laws for insurance whistleblower actions, private insurance. The insurance commissioners are adopting state laws that say, if you as an individual are aware of somebody perpetrating fraud on a private insurance company, we will reward you if you come forward and report it. So what's good for Medicare and Medicaid, the government is now going to be brought into the private sector. So it's not going away, it's just going to continue to grow. Here's some numbers, recent statistics from the government. In 2015, OIG reported expected recoveries of over $3.35 billion, $1.13 billion in audit receivables. And that's the audits y'all talked about earlier, the RAC, the Z-Pick, OIG. $2.2 billion in investigative receivables. 925 criminal actions against individuals and entities accused of healthcare fraud, 682 civil actions, 4,112 individuals, businesses excluded from participating in the federal healthcare programs. In my 20 years in this industry and working in this area, I have never seen enforcement actions and activity like I have seen today. It is every day I get a call. I'm being audited. The FBI came to talk to me. The DOJ came to talk to me. I have never seen anything like what I have seen in the last year to 2 years. You agree, yeah. So corporate compliance is here to stay. Healthcare fraud is a serious problem. And guys, just so you know, Mississippi is on the radar. Somehow, we are now #1 in hospice fraud in the United States. We have been flagged. Apparently, there are more people dying in the Delta than the population. And In Hattiesburg alone, our pharmacies billed over $500 million to TRICARE. We're on the radar. We are on the radar. And there is a serious problem with healthcare fraud. So, government expects us, and they expect providers to be accountable, responsible. The government expects providers to be proactive in going out, detecting fraud and abuse, and helping them to eliminate the waste. And that is what your program is all about. I think you went over these, but under PPACA, your core elements to a corporate compliance program. It is not difficult. Core elements. You have written standards of conduct to prevent and detect improper behavior. Everybody should have their corporate compliance program. You've all got your corporate compliance packet, program, code of conduct. Tells you what's expected of you. Written policies and procedures. Written standards of how we will do things, I think, as you said, the right way. In compliance with the law. A chief compliance officer and a committee, Mark Butley is your corporate compliance officer, do care to make sure we don't delegate services to an individual who has a propensity to commit fraud or an excluded individual. You all have a duty, if you become excluded or have something done against your license, actions taken against your license, to report it to MidSouth. If action is taken against your license, and we're dealing with suspensions, terminations, probations, chances are you will get a letter from the OIG telling you that you are now going to be excluded or limited or under a watch. Education of employees and agents. You guys are all here getting your training, annual training, year after year. It should be, again, kind of like a fire drill. Just so we all have it in the forefront of our mind, so we know that this is the plan. This is how we protect the quarterback. Systems to respond to allegations. So there will be investigations when there is a report. There is a hotline. Does everybody know how to find the hotline, MidSouth hotline? You can call in anonymously and report, or ask questions. Ask questions freely. If you have a question, ask it. If in doubt, ask. Make sure somebody gets you an answer and follow up. Audits. MidSouth will audit you. That's its duty, to make sure that what's going on is appropriate, to make sure we're not billing units that were not performed, to make sure that you're providing good, solid care. And it's also being documented. So there's no such thing as a store-bought compliance program or a program, we call it a program, but it's really a concept and an environment. And it's one that this company is fostering by providing the training and encouraging you all to be a part of that environment. And again, they're implemented to do the right thing or detect fraud and abuse. Fraud, knowing and willful intent to defraud. When we talk about fraud and the knowing and willful intent, we're talking about a difference between a civil action and a criminal action. And I don't know how many times I've seen and sat with individuals and we walk through why they're being investigated. And it's always well, that's not wrong, is it? That's not wrong. And we make a full circle. And the full circle eventually is, when you paid this doctor to refer patients to you, what were you paying him for? Well, he just needed a little help. That's not wrong. Well, you know it was. And when you sit and look at it, and when the government's looking at you, and you're now thinking about it going, I really don't know why. I really don't know why. When you look at it that way, it's wrong. Knowing and willful intent to deceive. You know deep down it's wrong. And there's a difference between that and abuse. Abuse is civil. Unintentional, but it's wrong. Examples of fraudulent conduct. Billing or causing someone to bill for services not rendered. You fill out your documentation indicating that you provided therapy, and you submit it to billing to process. Billing and MidSouth is not liable. They will have to pay back the fee. But the criminal act is the person who caused MidSouth to bill inappropriately. You didn't provide the services, but you filled out your form and you submitted it and you caused somebody else to bill for it. Purposely misrepresenting medical necessity. I heard y'all talk about that earlier this morning. Signing or falsifying blank records or forms. Again, similar to filling out a form, falsifying the form and signing it, certifying you did the services when in fact it wasn't. Upcoding, unbundling, and double billing. Additional fraudulent conduct, use of incorrect or invalid provider numbers. Selling and sharing Medicare health insurance claim numbers, routine waiver of copay and deductibles. Falsifying information, use of unapproved drugs, devices, or treatment. Improper physician referrals, that's the Stark Law. And offering, accepting, soliciting kickbacks, bribes, and rebates. Abuse. Here's where we have abuse. Unknown, unintentional conduct that is inconsistent with sound medical or business practices that fail to meet professional standards of care. And it results in unnecessary costs to a healthcare program. And again, we have excessive billing. You're not monitoring where you're billing, and you're billing for higher costs than those that are actually warranted. It doesn't have to be intentional. It's just done. Filing duplicate claims. We see some people that keep filing them because they want to get paid quicker, so they continue to file, they get paid, and processing the claims over and over. Inappropriate or incorrect information filed on any document. Payment as a condition of treatment, and we heard about unbundling or exploding charges, and we heard about the inadequate care. Worthless services. Worthless services, let me tell you, the government is going after it. They are saying, we're entitled to, like your plumber. Don't just come in and do something. Do the services I'm paying you for. So to the extent the services are deemed to be inadequate or worthless, not worth what the government's paying for, they're going back to getting its money back. We're away from just this intentional billing issues to now looking at the quality of care you are providing. That is one of the biggest, most forefront issues we are looking at with healthcare and the government and its initiatives, and their matter of pursuing it through what we call the False Claims Act, which is some of the settlements y'all heard earlier. That's what they're looking at. And it's so bad that not only are you entitled, is the government entitled to get its money back, an overpayment, but they are entitled to get penalties, treble damages, because it was so bad and you knew it was bad. And then if it wasn't abuse, they may just be entitled to a flat-out overpayment. So again, these fraudulent conduct results in stiff penalties. And we have laws. Back with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, we took a lot of laws that are out there for the public. They apply to everybody. And they morphed them in and put the word healthcare in front of it, saying, we have a law that we can go after you, but in case you didn't understand, we're going to make this applicable to healthcare providers. And the criminal laws carry with them fines, penalties, sentencing. And it just happens. False claims, your criminal laws. Healthcare fraud. Theft or embezzlement in connection with healthcare, false statement relating to healthcare, obstruction of criminal justice, mail and wire fraud, and the anti-kickback statute. The general laws are all the same. You get cited for one, you get cited for all. Theft and embezzlement, you build it over the internet. You just use your computer to do your billing, so mail and wire fraud. Anti-kickback statute, and we'll talk about that one in particular, is a criminal act, giving gifts in exchange for referrals, gifts, remuneration, cash in exchange for referrals. And then the obstruction of a criminal investigation. FBI comes and they ask you a bunch of questions. And you say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And you kind of playing some games with them. They said you, but what I really meant, they didn't ask about my company. And you don't answer the questions truthfully. There are serious penalties. It is criminal. You get an OIG subpoena, or somebody in an FBI investigation, and you go start shredding papers. You've obstructed a criminal investigation. It carries with it stiff penalties. And you guys aren't involved in it, but man, the temptation is there. And man, the temptation that people do these things. I've seen people being subject to a ZPIC audit. They get their initial request and the initial request for medical records. They go audit them. My thought is, don't audit them before you produce them and then audit them. Because inevitably, I will ask for the documents that they submitted, and you can find out where they, I needed to sign this document, so I just did. And we heard about the correct way to correct a medical record. You draw a line, or you do whatever, and you're very transparent, you initial and you date it. So why you would sign your document after the fact is without dating it, and that is the temptation, and we see a lot of that going on with the ZPIC audits. Resist the temptation. Submit them, audit them, make the corrective action after they go in. Civil laws. Okay? False Claims Act, civil monetary penalties, pretty much similar, but I will tell you the False Claims Act, otherwise known as the whistleblower law, is the new med-mal crisis. Do any of y'all remember way back when we had med-mal crisis and the plaintiff's attorneys are going door to door, doctor's office, filing lawsuits? We got tort reform. And somebody woke up and figured out that when you settle those claims and the insurance or whoever is paying back the hospital services that that person received, and Medicare already paid for it, Medicare's getting its money back. Medicare, Medicaid, whoever, they're getting their money back. So now there's really no damages that the individual plaintiff is entitled to, except for pain and suffering, because somebody else has already paid all their medical expenses. So the more lucrative avenue is not to file a med-mal case, but to file a qui tam action, saying the services were worthless. This company came and they provided me worthless services, and therefore I'm filing this qui tam action saying that it was worthless. I have all the documents and I can tell you this is not what happened, and it was so bad that it was fraudulent. And then that person called a relator gets 30% up to 17 to 30%, a portion of the proceeds from the case, depending on how actively involved they were in bringing the case. And if you can expand it to seven different patients, 7 different clients, Then you say it's corporate-wide, and that's some of the settlements that you heard about earlier. And then you get a windfall as the relator and as the relator's counsel. Attorney's fees are statutorily awarded in addition to the portion of the proceeds from the qui tam action. So any law firm that you knew that did plaintiff's work, if you go back up on their website nowadays, you will see that they also do qui tam. That's their moneymaker. And they're looking for it and they're trolling for these cases. Exclusion remedies self-referral law, which is the Stark law, which is civil, but we've now adopted it and pushed it over to where it can be criminal, and the state laws. Mississippi Medicaid Fraud Control Act. We have a Medicaid Fraud Act, and we also have a state anti-kickback law. If you violate the state or the federal, you pretty much violated the state law. Mississippi state law pretty much mirrors the federal anti-kickback law. So, sources. Where's my helper with the bucket? Does she go somewhere? Where's bucket? What are the sources of healthcare fraud? How does a healthcare fraud action initiate against a provider or a false claims act? What are your sources? Anybody? Yeah, well, you got it right in front of you. Raise your hand. Anyone? There you go. Patient. Yeah, she gets a prize. You don't know how many times your clients, your patients, call up the 1-800 number and MidSouth and tell them that you didn't do your job. They do that. Sometimes they got a little dementia and they tell the nursing home or they tell somebody they didn't come do my therapy. I haven't seen my therapist in a while. It happens. It does happen a lot, and yeah. They just wanted some attention, and usually when it's ferreted out, it's that they just forgot or they just wanted a little attention. Who else? What other sources of healthcare fraud? How does it come up? Peer. What's that mean? Who said that? Okay, what's it mean? It means your buddies get mad at you and they tell on you. Guess what? She didn't show up to work. She just did her documents and she didn't really come. She gets a prize. Another one. Family members, yes. Okay, she gets another prize. Family members, they call in and they say they didn't come today. They did a crappy job. I don't want that therapist coming back because they don't do anything. They sit there and they text on their phone during treatment. It's probably one of the big complaints. No one-on-one time. You're detracted. It was worthless because you didn't come and actually do what you were supposed to be doing. Who else? There you go, in the back. Physician. Yeah, good one. Good one. You don't have to read just what's on the page. You get 2 prizes. What else? Huh? Yeah, they come do an audit of your work. And it stands out. It looks fishy. Your documentation seems to be done all at one time. Anybody? What else? Anywhere else?
Disgruntled ex-employees.
Yeah. Well, that's a big one. That's a concern for every company when they fire somebody. That's it. Anyone else? Go outside the box. Think about it. Where else does it come from? Nothing? What was that? Yeah. Employer may tell on you. Oh, that's a good one. And you know what happens When they tell on you, they also report you to the licensing board. That's their duty. It's not because they want to, it's because if they don't, they get in trouble. So if there is they show that you haven't met your obligation under your own licensing board, and it is a reportable event. So that's a good one. All right. Now, generally, corporate compliance programs just didn't come up, they didn't just come up from thin air. The OIG is not that creative. They took these from sentencing guidelines, and they also took it from the Federal Aviation. They use this in the airline industry and in banking industries. So I think we had one where we had a former marketing director was put in to help develop regs, to help develop compliance. And of course they're using go-bys, but they're good go-bys, and that's the standard. So they copied kind of from the federal sentencing guidelines and said the written policies and procedures, clear lines of communication, effective lines of communication, meaning this open door policy, allowing you guys to report to your compliance committee and to others. Work it up the chain. If somebody's not getting you an adequate response, work it up the chain. And I know Mr. Cole, who's somewhere, one of those employers that if you're not getting the response, go up the chain. Education and training, marketing and monitoring and auditing, incentive and disciplinary measures, and corrective actions. So it's repetitive and it goes on, and I think y'all went through this morning. Clear commitment to compliance. Documenting it. Let's see. Effective lines of communication from top to bottom. Does everybody know where to find your hotline number? Do y'all have your corporate compliance program packet? Anyone?
It's in our handbook.
Okay. There you go. You get another prize. And there you can find your phone number. I know you know how to find your handbook because everybody knows how to look for paid time off, vacation, holidays, right? We got that part. So flip it over a few pages and find your compliance and your numbers. Yes? There you go. She gets a prize. She gets 2. All right, it's on the internet. Do y'all know how to find it? Yes. All right. It's painful, but I'm pulling it out of you. Periodic evaluation, training. Deliberate ignorance is no excuse. Okay? Ignorance is no excuse. When I tell people they violated the Anti-Kickback Act and they say, I didn't know there was a law that said that, it does not matter. You're still going to go to jail. And I have the cutest little client that is in jail right now. And he was very frank. He didn't have a physician supervising him. He had one, but he passed away. And every day he was going to get around to it. And about 7 years later, he had never gotten around to it. And he said, I know. I just made a mistake. Doesn't matter how sorry he was or how good of care he gave. And everybody thought he was the best guy ever. And the judge said, I hate this. I hate it because you did a very good service. Everybody has spoke as how wonderful your care was. But the law's the law. He said, I know. So deliberate ignorance is no excuse. Monitoring and auditing, your charge will be audited. Incentives and disciplinary measures, there will be discipline. And corrective actions, okay? Overpayments, those will be returned. Fraud, those carry with it. Again, the fraud is on the perpetrator. It's not on the company. It's on the person who did it. Although, company will pay it back. If there's a known situation of fraud, report it. That will allow company to self-disclose it and turn it back in. If you're not entitled to keep the money, you can't. And now the law says you can't keep it for after 60 days. So if you know of a mistake, let the company know so they can turn it in. It's that simple. Then we don't get lost in the minutia. So those are those. Self-disclosure protocol. Again, there is a provision to self-disclose fraud. Factors to consider, mainly, can I sleep at night? Mississippi does have a self-disclosure protocol. Interesting enough, it excludes fraud. They don't want you self-disclosing fraud. Mississippi statute says just report the overpayments and the abuse, but not the fraud. Kickback, anti-kickback. Do not accept gifts, cash in exchange for referrals. Have y'all heard about the raids that occurred 2 weeks ago? Anybody? Compounding? It's kind of like the hospice. There's a common denominator here. I don't mean to be ugly to the physicians, but both of them require a physician to order a service. And that's the only thing you have to get that. It's the only thing you have to get the pharmaceutical meds. It's the only thing you have to get a hospice admission. Don't pay them. Don't pay them for that. Don't pay them. So that's going to be a lot of what the fallout there is how much they were incentivized to order and to write scripts for that. So those are two big issues Mississippi's got a big bullet on her back for investigation. Is a purpose to induce referrals. It's really simple. Is the purpose to induce referrals. There is a general exception. You can, pay for a referral if it's for a legitimate purpose. And you should pretty much know it's legit. Nominal amounts, $50 per benefit. Don't be paying beneficiaries to sign up for the service. Don't be paying people. There's nominal amounts, and then there's $10,000. Had a partial hospitalization program. They were signing people up for the program, and they said, come in here, and we play bingo. Well, everybody knew on the street and in the neighborhood, if you got to go in there, they played bingo, and the door prizes were an Apple phone, money. So they all needed this partial hospitalization service. Accurate medical records makes good sense. Your documentation is the key. It's up to you guys. You document what you do. It's important. Do not cause someone to bill for services that are not reimbursable. And the government is now looking at documentation, and we're now getting audits where it says the physician's signature is not legible. Go get an attestation and a signature sheet. Yes, I write awful, but I've got to clean it up. You guys write, and it has to be clear and legible. Otherwise, they don't get paid for it and complete. We talked about how to correct medical records. Make it transparent, people. Whiteout, I don't even know that they sell that anymore, but they shouldn't. Uh, but make it transparent. If you wrote a wrong number, don't just write over it. I can tell, and that's not how you correct it. Not writing over it, just one line, initial, and correct it. Some of the general things, and I know y'all went through these in the OIG 2016 work plan. What I want to tell you, one of the big things that they are looking at, and it's not on there, you've got the oversight of the SNFs. You hear that they're changing the billing and all of that. Yes?
You guys just going to ask a question. It's been a practice for many years that your sponsors, vendors, would come into the hospital, I think a nursing home, and they would, sponsor a real nice dinner where they would take the doctors out, fine restaurants. Is that any way opposed to anti-kickback legislation?
Well, and that's the where are you taking them for the nice dinner? If it's a typical nice dinner and it's under at the dollar threshold, like they say, a $50 meal or a certain in the aggregate. Yeah, I mean, that's a fine line. Do I think the OIG is going to come after you for that? No. What's the value of it? Now, where they were having problems was when they were taking the docs to the Bahamas for dinner. Yeah, and we know that's a big thing with the pharmaceutical reps and companies. We're taking them, on major dinners. That is a good question, and that fine line of when it becomes too much. If you took them to dinner versus if you took them to dinner every week, and I'm a doctor's child, and I'll tell you what happened to me probably wouldn't fly today. I used to take my friends out to Sherman's in Greenville, and every time I went to dinner, I never paid for a meal. Somebody always picked it up and left me a card. That's a fine line. That was back in the day, statute of limitation has run on it. But I mean, that's how they worked back then. Dad, they went on trips. That's how it worked. And then, of course, they passed the Stark and anti-kickback, and we saw everybody running around talking to their attorneys and going, no more trips. So, that's a fine line. If you're doing it every week, you're paying for their kids' mission trips, you're doing whatever, that's a little overboard. But just let's go to dinner and let me tell you about my product is different. But not every week. So, yeah, it's a very good, you kind of know when you cross the boundaries. Therapy, big one. Well, therapy, and y'all have gone over these, I think, did y'all go through these? Yes, okay. I do want to add that adverse events is going to be a huge new concept for you guys. Huge new concept. Anybody know what adverse events, what I'm talking about when I'm saying adverse events? Anyone? Hello? Yes. Okay, you get a prize. Hold your hand up. Prize bowl. All right, yes. When your services cause harm such that they increase the cost to the government or federal health care program, guess what? Government's not paying for that anymore. You're transporting a resident, they fall, or they're in your care and they fall, they gotta go to the hospital, guess what? That's not gonna be paid for. And the healthcare provider who caused it is going to have to pay for that. And it is coming. It's in the hospitals and it is coming to all other providers. So if you're at fault and you cause an increased cost to that patient because of what you did, it's kind of like the plumber. Not only did he not fix it, he broke the whole commode, so you had to buy a new one. You're not going to buy it, he is. It's the same concept. Do we know? Okay, and MidSouth has a corporate compliance program. You guys got your program. It follows these elements. You guys have a code of conduct, and I'm not going to go through all of it. But it is there, your bullet points of what your compliance program is, your code of conduct, your duty. MidSouth's duty is to train you guys. Your duty is to report, ask questions, adhere to your code of conduct, report if you've got sanctions against your license, and do the right thing. That was the very first question. What's a corporate compliance program? Do the right thing. Make the steps to do the right thing. Is Philip Chapman here? Okay. So, I guess they're going to change over, and y'all are going to get into HIPAA, privacy and security part of HIPAA. Anybody have questions? Okay.
I'm just asking like where does this fall? And if you're not really paying a physician to like get services or whatever, but when you have a orthopedic group that opens their own therapy company in the same building with the orthopedic physicians. And we had a patient that told them to us therapy, this is, more local or whatever. But they had told him, the physician had told him that if they did not go get PT services with their PT staff, that they were going to get sick.
Well, that would be wrong.
Right. I mean, even if they didn't tell them that, I mean, is there not, like, where is that, conflict of interest? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you have a therapy company in the same building, I mean, basically all the money is going back in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So, where's the fine line with that?
Do what? Oh, can't hear. What you've got, if I yeah, you can do that. But what you've got is a physician group that has their own PT, and they're requiring the patients to keep it in-house. Well, yeah, write them a nice letter and tell them that y'all are in the building too, and the patient has a right to choose, is what I would suggest. But, I would have to think they've got some kind of an analysis as to how they can do that. And I guess it's under the in-office ancillary exception. But I don't think that they can require that the patient receive their therapy from them.
I'm sure it's not in writing anywhere, but I mean, the patient told us, that they knew that they could come back to our clinic to get therapy because it was local, instead of having to drive 30 minutes. But, I'm sure that it was kind of off the record. Well, if you're not going to see our therapist, in our group, then I'm going to provide these services as a physician.
Well, and I guess
I mean, you can't prove that, but I
this
mean,
point is he's probably saying, in order for me to follow up on your care, I need to have the therapy done to where I'm monitoring and seeing what kind of therapy I'm being provided here. That you're being provided and following up. So it's a fine line, but it is maybe a nice little tell the patient they have a right to choose. They have a right to choose the healthcare provider they want to see. So. Are your slides just running?
I don't know. Are you done?
Huh?
Are you done?
I'm done. The code of conduct. Do you all have a copy of your code of conduct?
in our handbook,
Hello. Okay, so flip over past your paid time off vacation part and your code of conduct, which is self-explanatory in doing the right thing. Oh. But I'm not going to read your code of conduct to you. Are these slides right after this?
His? I think it's separate.
Oh, okay.